and right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready or not. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. How you like me now?
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
Wait, there he is.
Hey, you are watching live to the best damn Cincinnati sports podcast this side of your mom. My name is Santori Miles. We got Cincy James. We got Big Savage Greg and Cincinnati radio legend Mo Egger. How we doing? How we doing?
I love an understated introduction.
That's perfect.
I'm well. Hey, thanks for having me. What's going on?
Hey, we're ready for this 1 o'clock game that was supposed to start. No.
1 o'clock game that's going to start at 7:30. It's awesome. Can't wait.
That's right. Well, Mo, we'll go ahead and just jump right in.
Yeah.
Basically, I figure we talk about a lot of Red stuff today.
Yeah.
So the topic of the day, it seems like, has been Ellie.
Yeah.
So give us your thoughts on Ellie. I've read what you've put out there already, but give us your thoughts on Ellie. Do you think it's kind of a young flamboyance? Do you think it's just laziness? What do you think's going on here?
I think, and you could apply this to the team as a whole, but with youth comes a lot of things that aren't great. But with youth comes a lot of things that are great. And with Ellie, we're sort of at the intersection of those things. There's so much upside. There's so much flamboyance. There's so much energy. There's so much to love. But with youth comes a lot of mistakes, comes immaturity, comes volatility, comes unreliability. And you could apply that to Ellie, but you could apply that to this team. I go back, back in January and February when statistical projections were coming out. And I think one of them said, well, the Reds are going to win 79 games. And by the way, they may only win 79 games, but my thought was disregard that. But I would also say disregard it had they said they were going to win 91 games. A projection is based on a track record. This team collectively doesn't have one. They have a lot of guys who don't have really a back of a baseball card. And so to project what they're going to be seems like a foolish exercise when they've given us no indication as to what they're going to be, both as a team and from the standpoint of so many of the individual players. So what the Reds are trying to do is really hard. They're trying to do better than they did last season, all while guys are still learning on the job. Now, some of that might be the mechanics of how you hit big league pitching or how you get big league hitters out. Some of that might be, hey, here are some simple plays that you have to make if we're going to be as good as we want to be. Here are some things you have to do if you're going to be an established big league player that you can't get away with at this level. Ellie is a work in progress. He is not where he needs to be as a player. That might be from a skill standpoint. That might be from a maturity standpoint. But I'm always willing to bet on the talent. And so I think with what we saw specifically last night in Philadelphia, we're in this day and age where everybody wants to just grab the extreme sides and yell at each other. So I saw this on social media, right? It was, you have folks over here who think, well, this is why you should send Ellie to prison or Louisville. And I'm not sure which is worse. Or it's no big deal, not even worth talking about. Well, neither of those things are true. Look, on a micro level, it's a big deal. It was his play last night was one of the reasons why the game sort of unraveled the way it did. It's not the only reason they lost, but who knows how the game plays out if he makes a couple of plays in the field that he is supposed to make. And so when a player does something that they shouldn't, especially when they're young, you address it. There are a lot of things that I find that my child does that's unacceptable. It's my job to correct it. It doesn't mean you're grounded for 2 weeks. Doesn't mean I hate my kid, but it means, hey, look, here's something you did. It's not acceptable. This is why, and this is how you have to do it better. That's okay. Why can't you do that with Ellie? At the same time, you know, I heard people, he should be benched tonight. Why? Like, isn't there a way of teaching and instructing a young player that doesn't involve punishing the rest of the team or making a demonstration of what he did? And so I hear a lot about Reds culture, how great it is. Cool. Let the Reds culture kind of take over here and hope that what we saw in Philadelphia last night proves to be a pivot point where now he learns and does better in a similar set of circumstances. He has to be better as a player. He's still striking out way too much relative to the overall production, but he's had 3-4 big months, right? So I think because of the expectations for the season, we've sort of assumed that like so many guys in this team are ready, that they're rounded out, finished, no longer work in progress, and that's not true for so many guys on this team. Which again illustrates that what the Reds are trying to do this season is really hard. It's hard to develop and win at the exact same time, and they're trying to do that with Ellie along with so many other guys.
Hey,
He's got 13 to 15 years too. Like he just turned 22 in January, so he's very young. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry to.
No, it's okay. So Mo, by the way, Greg from Madeira here. I don't know if you
Hi,
remember.
Greg.
How you doing, bud? But anyway, before the season started, you hear the news about Marte suspended 80 games. Then we hear the news about McLean. We think it's a minor injury. Then we find out he needs surgery. I mean, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm panicking, but I'm like, wait a minute. We have a bunch of extra players here. Remember, there was talk Jonathan India. Oh, let's trade Jonathan India. Let's trade Jonathan India. Mm-hmm. We have plenty of room for him right now, which is, and you look at Martini. He's coming in, hitting the ball well. So if you're going to have injuries, which you never want, this is kind of the time to have them because you've got a lot of insurance on the team. Is that a fair statement?
Well, yes and no. They do have depth. Mm-hmm. So, if Jonathan India is your plan B, well, that's pretty damn good, right? I mean, there are a lot of teams that if they lost their starting second baseman would love to have a guy like Jonathan India. At the same time, the start of your season, theoretically at least, is when you're supposed to be at your healthiest. Now, that's obviously often not true. It's not true in a number of places, but like I think the collection of injuries they have, they can get over that. But what you wonder is, okay, with all of these guys not available at the start of the season, how many more inevitably are going to get added to that list, right? You can only handle so much. And so in a vacuum, you can figure out a way to survive without Matt McLean, which is hard because I think was their best player last year. And you can figure out a way to navigate the first half of the season without Noel Marte. But what if two more guys get hurt? Like how much can they withstand? And you go into every season, I think, understanding there's going to be injuries. Okay. But you don't want to have to operate under that assumption, knowing there's already this long list of guys they're going to be without. And so the sincere hope on my end is, by the time TJ Friedel comes back, which hopefully happens in early May, that there isn't another guy and then another guy and then another guy on top of that it becomes really hard to recover from. So, yeah, they have depth and they have options. I mean, Will Benson's done a nice job in center field. And again, if Jonathan India is your backup second baseman and plan B there, boy, that's pretty damn good. And they do have, relative to what we've seen in recent years, a fair amount of depth. But, it's not the place you want to start from. You don't want to start from a place where three guys that you could have said 2 months ago should be in the opening day starting lineup are not available, and not only not available, in two instances aren't going to be available for quite a while, and in Matt McLean's case, maybe even not at all this year.
Right. Go ahead, Santori.
I mean, I 100% agree with everything Mo said thus far. It was one of the reasons why I was not on the trade Jonathan India trade early on in the offseason. Mm-hmm. And I hate saying it, but the number one reason I kept coming back to was at some point someone's going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to just get rid of your depth. I mean, teams, especially look in the NFL, I mean, how many times would the Bengals have loved to have just had extreme depth at the offensive line? I mean, you don't trade your depth just because you have it. Sometimes you accept the fact that you're spoiled with riches and run. It's not like you're trading minor leaguers. You're trading guys that you would hope to, or potentially trading guys that you're hoping to win now with. I mean, the Reds are at the beginning of the opening of what we're hoping is a 3 to 5 year window of a run. So why would I trade pieces that I think are going to help me win, whether they're an everyday starter or not? They're valuable pieces. Regarding Ellie De La Cruz, and I can be as critical as most regarding Ellie. I'm not someone that wants him banished to Louisville per se. I was very frustrated with him last night. I'm also not one to make excuses for professional athletes, but I'll say this. He's 22. The field conditions were an absolute shit show last night. Yes, he has been erratic, to say the least, as a defender in his short time as a major leaguer, but there weren't too many clean plays from many guys last night. So I'm willing to kind of chalk up one game early on in a thunderstorm to, yeah, it's Ellie, but there's some other compounding elements here. But there have also been some things that we saw in the first 3 games where he has looked, especially from the right side, a little bit more patient. I know they've cut down some of the mechanics at the plate. And I get frustrated when there's not immediate results either. Believe me, I'm one of those people that pound the table. I want to win. I want to win now. I don't like waiting. But you have to remind yourself, he's 22 years old. Not all of these guys are Mike Trouts coming up here at 19 years old and are rock stars. Those are called generational players. While Ellie has generational talent, he might not be a generational player. I think he's going to be a damn good player. But, Hunter Green, we're still having bumps in the road with him. People aren't ready to cast him off to Louisville just yet. And he's basically the same age. He's a little older. I mean, these guys aren't. Now, if this is still going at 26, 27 years old with Ellie, it's a vastly different story. But they're, he just got called up last year. He's barely had a full season under his belt. He's 22. He's a freak of nature. He does have the luxury of having a ridiculously young and talented roster around him, which is great because it's going to make those bumps in the road easier to handle. It makes things easier to stomach when I do have 7, 8 other guys in the lineup that can carry it while he's doing this and trying to figure it out.
Well, I think there's a lot there. I always come back to kind of when our show started, which was 07. So that's kind of right around the time that the Reds, they move on from Griffey and they move on from Dunn. But, there's some guys coming up, man. And, Joey Votto got there in September of 07. But then there was this long stream of guys, some of whom had a lot of success, some of whom had some success, some of whom didn't have a ton at all. But, a long stream of guys that made up the backbone of, 3 playoff teams from 10 to 13. With the exception of Joey Votto, none of them really went through none of them failed to go through a thing that didn't make you wonder, okay, is this guy really ready? And I remember, I remember when he got hurt, it was 2009. He got hurt on a Saturday afternoon in New York. We were talking about, do they send Jay Bruce down? Well, Jay Bruce ended up being one of the best players the Reds have had this century. And I remember getting phone calls about like, God, is this Cueto guy ever going to figure it out? And well, yeah. People don't want to hear this. And unfortunately, like the players on this team are playing for a franchise that hasn't won in forever. Right. And that kind of, just sort of weighs on everybody. Like we're tired of the Reds not advancing in the postseason. We're tired of waiting. Well, that's not Ellie De La Cruz's fault. It's not Hunter Green's fault. It's not, Graham Ashcraft's fault or whichever player you want to name. They're really young. And so, again, I keep coming back to like what the Reds are trying to do is hard. Like what Ellie De La Cruz is being asked to do is tough. He didn't get, brought to the big leagues and be surrounded by this veteran group of guys that could sort of take them all in. He's trying to figure it out. So are his teammates. And I think that's hard to do. In respect to Jonathan India, look, I'd be the first to admit I was open to trading him, but there's a difference between being open to trading him and just wanting to get rid of him.
Right.
Nobody with a brain thought, just get rid of Jonathan India. We have too many second basemen. Now, you were being reasonable if you're like, look, the Reds could use some help. Let's just say last year, the Reds could use some help in the starting rotation. how could they make that happen? What could they move that could make that happen? And I think you were being fair if you said, well, God, you know what? We are going to probably trade from an area of surplus. Maybe Jonathan India is worth enough to a team that they could give us something back that we're looking for. And it turns out the Reds couldn't find a taker. Good. They put a high price on Jonathan India. They should have put a high price on Jonathan India. We're not talking about somebody whose contract was expiring or who was demanding a trade or threatening to not play or anything like that. They had years of team control. And like if we believe they weren't shopping Jonathan India, of course they were. They were probably shopping a lot of guys. But he was one of those dudes that they said, look, this guy is valuable. He does some things really well. Maybe there's some things that other guys do that's better, and maybe he's going to be squeezed out of his position, but we still value him enough to keep him, and we value him enough that if we're not going to keep him, we're going to ask for a lot in return. And by all accounts, I'm led to believe that that's what's happened. And so if the worst, I said this past offseason, if you told me the Reds traded Jonathan India for, two established big leaguers, one's a starter, maybe one's a bullpen guy, or one's an outfielder, awesome. Or if you told me you traded Jonathan India for an established player who's got a chance to make this team better and a really good prospect who's close to being in the big leagues, okay. But if you would have told me Jonathan India is going to be a Swiss Army knife for the Reds, awesome. That's great too. They put a lot of value on him, and as we've seen early on this season, they were right in doing so.
Yeah, it almost seems like they were kind of grooming him to be that Spencer Steer of last year, just moving all over the field, batting everywhere, although this year he's been number one in the one hole. But let's shift gears just a little bit because I know we don't have a whole lot of time. Let's go to the pitching staff and talk about the new guy, Frankie Montas. Did you expect that type of performance on opening day from him?
I don't know what I expected. I think I'd be lying if I told you I thought he was going to throw 6 shutout innings, but I mean, they made him the opening day starter for a reason. That's because they believed he could set the tone in the starting rotation by giving them a performance that gave the team a chance to win. And I think that's, is he going to throw 6 shutout innings every single time? No. But I think the idea behind signing a guy with his limited track record last year was, we think this guy can be maybe our most reliable starting pitcher and give him a chance to win almost every single time that he pitches. The coolest thing for me was the entire staff on opening day didn't walk anybody. And, for a staff that so often last year struggled with control, maybe that sets a tone that was kind of missing last year. Look, it's hard for me to imagine. We've talked about it to death. The starting pitching, it goes without saying, has to be better. How much better does it have to be? Probably even better than we originally thought because of the guys they don't have in the field right now. Well, it's hard for me to imagine the starting staff being significantly better if Frankie Montas doesn't replicate his best seasons in Oakland. And so it's way too early to say that that's going to happen, but certainly what we saw on opening day would suggest that it's a very distinct possibility.
I want to ask about Diaz. I mean, Diaz, when he comes in, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. He could be lights out, but then sometimes it's like the old Bob Uecker saying, just a bit outside sometimes. And last year, there were certain situations where he was just – I was like this with him. He'll walk 1 or 2 batters, but he'll get you out of the game. But, I just go back and forth with Diaz. But, what's your take on Diaz as a closer?
Well, I said on the show on Monday that there's what I know, which is I know that last year in the second half of the season, there were some outings that left a lot to be desired. There's what I heard, which was in spring training, his velocity was down and he was having a hard time getting hitters out. And then there's what I saw, which on Saturday was he wasn't very good. Now, I kind of feel like he got squeezed on the first hitter of the 9th inning on Saturday. And if he doesn't, maybe that inning turns out differently. And so I think Alexis Diaz, we saw in the first half of the season last year, how good he can be. And so, you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, I think you're being reasonable if you go, God, okay, he slipped a little bit in the second half. The spring numbers weren't great. And, in that outing on Saturday, he struggled. I think the good news is, what was it, Monday in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
He looked awesome. He benefited from the Phillies not knowing how to steal bases, but he looked terrific and he was pitch efficient. My guess is by the end of the season, we're going to say Alexis Diaz was a big part of this team's success. But also, if they're going to be in the mix all season long, they're going to be in the middle of a really tight race where, not unlike last year, 1 or 2 games could be the difference between being in and being out come October. So you've got to win the games where you have a lead in the 9th inning. You've got to win the games where you give your closer. If we're talking about, a team that is so good we think they're going to win 100 games and the closer blows a save or two, okay. But on this year's team, that legitimately could be the difference between being on the outside and being on the inside come October. And so I don't dismiss what I've seen and heard from Alexis Diaz, but God, at his best, he's one of the best closers in baseball, but there is such a premium on him being that because of just this team's overall small margin for error. I also like how David Bell used him the other night too, for what it's worth, bringing him in a tie game in the 8th inning with 1 out and 2 on, like put him in a high leverage situation. Let's go. And he rose to the challenge and that was encouraging.
Santori, you talk about that a lot with high leverage situations with closers. Just about, when you bring them in and you're down, 4 runs, or let's say the opposite, you're up 4 runs or 5 runs, you just don't get those juices flowing.
Well, a lot of closing, and when I say a lot, it's like 90% plus is mentality. I mean, it's so much driven on adrenaline in situational based baseball. That's why you'll see guys that are dominant closers, and sometimes managers will throw their closer in the 7th inning, 8th inning, if it's, tie or they're pitching backwards, what have you, and they just might not be as sharp, or it just doesn't seem as electric as it could be. A lot of it's feeding off of the momentum of the crowd and the situation and the adrenaline of the moment. Closers, I liken them to kickers in football. They can be very fickle at times. Baseball's a fickle sport in general, and it's definitely a mental thing. It's definitely a feel for the position and moment. When you start messing with that, specifically with the back end of your bullpen, you can run into some problems.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between a save situation and a high leverage situation.
Sure.
And so what they did on Monday was there are a lot of managers, maybe a little bit less so in this day and age than say, 7 or 8 years ago, but there are a lot of managers who would have said in the 8th inning, well, it's not a save situation and I need my closer for the 9th. And by the way, this is a little bit easier because we don't have the pitcher batting anymore. So you don't have to worry about what God, his place in the batting order is going to come up. But tie game, it's not a save situation, but that's the ball game right there. If Philly scores, chances are the bottom of the 9th inning is moot because the Reds, if they don't come back, we're not going to play it. So I love the fact that David Bell said, I'm using my bullet here. I'm using my best weapon here to get out of this situation. And if it means I got to figure it out in the 9th, which they obviously brought Alexis back, or I'm not going to have him in the 10th if we go extras and I score, it has driven me nuts for years. Not just here, but just watching the sport, how many times I feel like, God, in a big situation with the game hanging in the balance, the manager didn't use his best guy because they wanted to save him for the save situation. What's a higher leverage moment? Tie game, 1 out, 2 on, bottom 8, or we scored 3 runs in the 9th, and now we bring him in the bottom of the 9th so he can get a save. Right. I hate that. I love how and Alexis Diaz was used a lot like this, specifically early last year, I think, where forget the save situation, forget what may happen later. We need to figure out a way to stay in the game now, and then we'll worry about the rest of it later. David Bell did that effectively on Monday with Alexis Diaz.
Real quick, good news, 8 p.m. first pitch.
All right. Yes, which means you could have left this morning at about 9 a.m. and seen first pitch tonight in Philly.
Oh gosh. Well, staying on the pitching staff, Nick Lodolo, it seems like he is poised to come back. Do you think that they put him right back into the rotation, or do you think they bring him into the bullpen?
That's a great question. I don't. I think they would have to be dissatisfied with somebody's performance to go ahead and throw him into a starting role. But I don't know. I hear arguments that he should be a relief pitcher, but man, for my money, I thought in 2022 his best was better than anybody else's best. Obviously we didn't see it as much as maybe we would have liked, but I kind of feel like if he's going to be a starting pitcher this year, make him a starting pitcher and then adjust, but stick Nick Martinez in the bullpen, or because of always how weird the early schedule is, go to a 6-man rotation. Like if he's a starting pitcher and that's where his future is, make him a starting pitcher. And Nick Martinez, put him in the bullpen and okay, like what's the harm? But I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out of the pen. I don't know. It's kind of a nice problem to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nick Lodolo is going to come back. But I'm sort of the belief, like they're obviously trying to win, but you're trying to use guys in the roles that they're most likely to serve in. And I sort of feel like that's, for Nick, that's still a starting pitcher.
Hunter Green, I mean, I think we can all agree he's going to be a top 10 pitcher in the league within hopefully the next 2 years. I mean, he was just lights out Saturday. I mean, do you think when do you think that Hunter Green will finally become that top 10 pitcher?
When he can get through a lot of innings without throwing a lot of pitches. That's it was kind of the thing on Saturday, right? Like he didn't pitch poorly. They were in a, when he left, they obviously still had a chance to win. They should have won the game, but he took 4 2/3 innings to throw 100 pitches. And, the term pitch efficiency gets used so often this year, but like what was great about Frankie Montas on opening day was 6 innings, 81 pitches. He probably could have kept going early in the season. Maybe you don't have him. They had a big lead, so no problem with when they pulled him. But to me, the true ace of a staff is reliable and at the very least gives you length. And with Hunter Green, what frustrates me sometimes is there will often be that inning. Opening day last year, right? He breezes through the first 2 innings and then throws like 33, 34 pitches in the 3rd inning, and now he can't get through 5. There needs to be more performances where he's gotten through 5 and you look at the pitch count and it's like, holy crap, he can go 2, maybe 3 more. Mm-hmm. And with him, that just doesn't happen enough. And, then I go back to last year's team and how frequently they were going to the bullpen in the 4th inning and the 5th inning of games that, were close because the starter just couldn't get deep enough. And what that does to your bullpen and how hard it is to manage. And obviously that's a conversation that includes all the starting pitchers. But to me, it starts with Hunter Green. Like if one day we're going to look at him and go, he's the staff ace, the first thing I think of is he goes 6 or 7. And yeah, 20 years ago, you might have said, well, he goes the distance or he goes 8. Really don't do it that way anymore. But Saturday, I felt it the first batter of the game when he walked him, I think on 4 pitches. And then he gets through it and he's okay. And he kind of looked locked in for the first 2 innings and then, more control issues. And then you're kind of looking at the pitch count, especially early in the season. And you're like, well, God, he'll be lucky to give him 5. And he didn't even give him 5. That has to be the exception and not the rule. And unfortunately with Hunter, it might not be the rule, but it's still so much a part of what he does that it, to me, puts a limit on what he's able to bring to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with Hunter, it's been somewhat frustrating just because he hasn't been the most blessed with health either. Mm-hmm. And you talk about those things with pitch efficiency, and a lot of that comes with maturing and just being able to get into a rhythm as a pitcher over time. And when you're constantly having to reset from an injury here, Tommy John the 1 year, and you go back to how many minor league starts he's had and how many professional starts he's had versus when he's drafted. And it's, again, like Ellie, he hasn't really had that much time and he's still very, very young. Obviously, the Reds are confident because they just extended him for an awful long time. I don't think anybody's got any question about his stuff. But there are times where he does have lapses with control. He is somewhat susceptible to the long ball. I think over time that's going to weed itself out as he learns to control stuff a little bit better. Part of it is Great American Ballpark. That's always going to be part of it. But, another pitcher that had pitch count issues early on, if you remember, was Johnny Cueto.
Yeah.
He used to seemingly always be 20 to 25 pitches an inning. And then by the end of his tenure in Cincinnati, it was, oh, my God, I don't want this guy to leave. He's a Cy Young candidate every year. It's part of the process with pitchers. All of them are like that. Graham Ashcraft has had that same issue. Brandon Williamson's had that same issue. When Lodolo finally returns, he'll probably have some control and pitch efficiency issues. Guys don't come out of college firing 99 miles an hour in the strike zone at 8 to 12 pitches an inning and walking, 4-1 strikeout to walk ratio. That just doesn't happen. Those are things that develop over a period of 7 to 8 years sometimes. So it's just, again, this whole thing is, with me, just keeps going back to being patient. Mm-hmm. And I think it's hard to be patient. One, like you said, Mo, where the team hasn't won in a significantly long time. But two, I think something that ironically compounds that is how quick a lot of these kids came up last year and performed at such a high level that I think people are forgetting what those growing pains are supposed to be like. You don't have seasons like last year where 7 and 8 prospects come up and are just ready to rock and roll and perform as well as they did, as consistent as they did. Mm-hmm. So you've got this period of time that you haven't won. You've got this unrealistic season that happened last year, and now I think some of the fans are trying to force that instant gratification onto some of these guys coming back, and it's just causing a lot of mental stress that doesn't need to be there.
For the fans.
Yeah, for some fans.
I think also with Hunter, he's been a part of the franchise for such a long time now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That it's hard to believe he's made exactly 47 big league starts. He was adversely affected by the COVID year where he did not pitch in competitive situations. He was adversely affected, obviously, by having Tommy John surgery. He's made a season and a half worth of big league starts. And you're right. I mean, I used to take phone calls from people wondering, like, God, is Johnny Cueto ever going to get it? Well, again, yes. The answer was yes. I think with Hunter, what's interesting to me is, is he going to get to a point where he trusts every pitch that he knows how to throw? I remember a year ago at this time, all we heard about was, well, he's got a changeup. Cool. He never throws it. So does he, as he learns, as he rounds out his arsenal, does he get to a point where he's comfortable throwing anything, anywhere, anytime in the count to any hitter with any situation? And I don't know that right now the answer is yes, but again, that to me that's part of the learning. I used to hear Luis Castillo talk about, like, it was a while before he had that great changeup. Like it was a while before I trusted myself to throw it in any count, any hitter, any situation. Well, then, as it turned out, look what he turned into. It took a while, and it does, we're so impatient. We're understandably impatient. And then with Hunter, he was drafted in 2017. And I think we all thought, God, by now that guy is going to be a mainstay. And a lot of things have conspired against that being the case. But as I've said with Ellie De La Cruz, I'll bet on the talent long-term, and Hunter Green's got a ton of it.
Right. Real quick, Arjun here is saying that he gets too nervous to call into your show on 1530, even though he listens daily.
Why?
I was going to say, I don't think you're going to bite.
Why would anybody be nervous?
Arjun, call him tomorrow.
I hear people say this all the time. They get, what is there to be nervous about?
Right.
We're not solving the world's problems. We had a guy call today, and I talked to him for like 8 minutes, and he could not have disagreed more with me. And we don't yell at you. We don't hang up on you. We'll have a discussion at the end of it. All right, man, talk to you later. Like, there's no reason to be nervous.
Arjun, give him a call tomorrow.
Call tomorrow.
But the second thing was so TJ Antone. It was very nice to see him get that save the other night, especially with everything that he's dealt with. He didn't necessarily look great in that outing, and he definitely didn't look great in the first outing. What's your take on TJ Antone currently?
Just want to see him stay healthy. I mean, let's talk about his performance after he is pitched in 10 to 12 games with no hiccups at all. Like, I feel like if he could establish health, there's still a lot there. He's just 30 years old. I am of the opinion, get healthy, which he is, stay healthy, and then once he does, we'll figure out what his role is, if he should have a role, what he has to do better. And I would be willing to bet that like Derek Johnson and David Bell and the powers that be would tell you the same thing. Like, let's just get him to a point where he's used on a regular basis and we're not holding our breath every time he goes into his delivery, because I'm not there. I love TJ Antone, but it's like every time he goes into his delivery, I'm going, okay, is this it? It's like watching, Joe Burrow go back to pass behind a bad offensive line. So I just want him to be healthy. And then once he is, we'll go from there. And sounds like a cop out of an answer, but I think with him, just because of his history, before you could really talk about what he's going to mean to this team and what his role is going to be and all that, I need to see him pitch a bunch, and then we'll kind of wrap our brain around what should happen from there. And
that's fair, and we're all rooting for Captain Hook for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Arjun, I just want to point out, Mo has dealt with me for years calling in, and he's still going. So that tells you a lot, right?
And I'm always friendly. I'm always nice, and we try to not make you wait on hold forever.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, one question I'd like to ask: there seems to be a bit of a miscommunication when the ball's hit up in the air. I got it. Who's going to catch it? Seems there's been a bit of a miscommunication right there. So, what do you think they should? How do you think they should handle that? When someone says "I got it" or something, it's just miscommunication when the ball's hitting the air.
Well, if it's an outfielder charging in and an infielder going back, I could still remember my Pony League baseball coach, Mr. Paglione, yelling, "Outfielder's ball." So when it's a situation like that, the infielder, I think most of the time, there was a play in foul territory the other night, and I felt like get out of the right fielder's way. And I might not even be referencing a Reds game, but I've always felt like that's an outfielder's ball. At the same time, I think with this team, we've talked a lot about their aggressiveness. And to me, part of that is these guys think they can catch everything. And so, it's cool to be aggressive, but hey, sometimes you got to get out of the way and let the other dude make the play. And hopefully that comes with experience and playing with each other and guys, fitting certain roles. But it does drive me nuts just because I can still hear that, nearly 40 years later, when an infielder is going out and an outfielder is coming in, that usually should be a ball caught by the outfielder. There are exceptions.
Yeah,
that usually should be a ball called by the outfielder.
Right.
Santori?
I'm good right now.
Okay. Real quick, how are we doing on time, Mo? You're good.
I got like 5 minutes, and okay. then I said I'd have dessert with my kid.
Oh, there you go. Well, I respect that completely. I got 2 myself. Mm-hmm. But forecast for the Reds this season, since we're just about done. What do you think happens? How far can they go? Who's the MVP? That kind of stuff.
Well, how far can they go? I mean, I think we're still early enough that if you try to speak with any conviction that here's how many games I think they're going to win, I think you're fooling yourself. I make it about what are the range of possibilities that would not be surprising, and I still maintain this: if they won 90 games, I would be unsurprised. If they lost 90 games, I would be unsurprised. Anything outside, now that's a huge range, right? I mean, there are some years where I go, God, this team should win between 85 and 90 games, or they should win between 70 and 75, and anything outside of that is a surprise. Almost no plausible outcome would surprise me. I am concerned, as we talked about before, about them starting the season with so many injuries, because I always allow for the fact that injuries are going to be a part of the season as the season unfolds. I think this team is collectively so young and inexperienced that to attach any statistical value to individuals and any win total to the team is really, really hard to do. I think they're extraordinarily interesting. I think they're in a division that's going to be wide open. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what they're willing to do at the trade deadline. I keep coming back to the same thing. If the starting staff can stay healthy and be markedly better as opposed to last year, if they're league average, they're going to have a chance. If that doesn't happen, probably not. And then if they get in the postseason, you take your chances. And nobody would have thought the Arizona Diamondbacks would have played in the World Series last year. In terms of an MVP, I'll go ahead and I know he's not gone off to a great start, but I still think CES is going to put up such big power numbers that he's going to be the default guy. Like all of these other dudes, we wonder how are they going to do this year? How did their skill sets translate to the big leagues? What I do know is CES has power, raw country power. Saw it in that home run he hit on Sunday. I'll double down on that and say, unfortunately, because Matt McClain's not going to play, and unfortunately because Noelvi Marte is going to miss half the season, and because Ellie De La Cruz will call a wild card, I'll say CES. But I hope it's a fun discussion at the end of the year, because that means a bunch of guys had quality seasons.
I could see Spencer Steer getting in that conversation.
Sure, yes. We always forget about him, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody, and I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It happened. He's so unassuming. Like, he's just
he is.
He's just solid as a rock. Just nice and consistent. I've been putting bets out there here since the beginning of the season, and I'm always putting him in there for a hit every time.
Yeah, sure.
And I've won quite a bit, so that works out.
Mo, I've got one last important question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What is dessert tonight?
I think my wife and daughter made brownies, some sort of brownie. I got home and came down here to do this, so I haven't had dinner yet. I put off dinner to talk to you guys, but I did say I'm eating dessert before dinner, which is every 9-year-old's dream.
Right.
So I know, but I think there's some sort of brownie that's been made that I can't wait to sink my teeth into.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Mo, we'll let you go.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I feel like this is kind of backward, but long-time listener, first-time host.
Caller.
Please call the show.
Arjun said sounds good. So maybe you'll hear him tomorrow.
All right, well, let's make that happen. That'd be great.
All right.
Hey, everybody enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully it doesn't rain anymore in Philadelphia.
Right. Yep. Go Reds. Thanks,
all right.
guys.
Anytime, guys. See ya.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Anytime. See ya.
See ya. All right.
I want brownies now.
Right. Me too. Man, that's dedication, man. Ditching dinner, because I would have said I'm eating dinner. No, that's dedication right there.
Right.
Thank you so much, Mo. Maybe I should eat dessert before dinner sometime to try it out again.
I haven't had dinner in years. I've just been eating cake.
No. You've been eating ass, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Goodness. We're not that kind of show, Greg.
What? Yeah, we are.
But no, anyway, like I say, obviously yesterday's game was a bit of a bummer, but I think they'll bounce back today. Here's one. I got a suggestion. Don't pitch to Bryce Harper. Just let him walk.
Don't kick to Hester.
Right, exactly.
So what's funny is game one of this series, right? Harper's coming up against Antone. It's me, my father-in-law, and my wife. My mother-in-law's there too. She's reading a book, so I'm not sure how dialed in she is at the moment, but it's okay. We love you, Wanda. So it's me, my father-in-law, my wife. Jeff and I, we're dialed in, and we're going, oh shit, not this guy, not this situation.
Right.
And I'm kind of poking Ashley on the leg. She's playing something on her phone, and I'm like, "This is someone you want to watch." Like I don't ever. I say I don't ever. I do it a lot. I poke my wife like, "You want to pay attention to this guy? This is a big name. You want to watch this guy, right?" Because she doesn't know everybody in baseball.
Right.
Nobody does, but
Right.
you know, she likes baseball. She doesn't know. She couldn't tell you 5 guys in the Phillies team, and she's in the other room, and she'll be honest.
And she knows Nick Castellanos. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, here comes Bryce Harper, and we're going, oh, shit. And, you know, Antone gets him out. She's like, that's what you guys are worried about? And then game 2 rolls around, and she's sitting there on her phone. Jeff and I, again, dialed in. Wanda's in the corner reading her book. And then, bang! And I poked Ashley. I said, remember that guy last night? She goes, well, thank God he did it here and not last night. I said, yeah. Comes up again. Bang! Poke Ashley. I said, remember that guy? She goes, he did it again? I said, yeah. Comes up with bases loaded. I poke her before the pitch is thrown. I said, remember this guy? Bang! Grand slam. She goes, what the hell? I was like, yeah. I said, we were lucky last night. So
He's one of those guys.
He's one of those guys. And he's been doing it forever.
Here's a real question, Tori. Who do you trust baseball knowledge more with, Ashley or Kieran?
With baseball?
Yeah.
Oh, Ashley.
Okay.
It's probably limited to like the last 18 months, but Ashley.
Yeah. No, we took Kieran to his first baseball game. He was just, I think he asked Tori too many questions like, what's a pop out? Kieran, though, had a great time, though, with us last year. But Kieran
I don't mind, you know, fielding questions, especially Kieran's a unique situation. He's not from the States. He didn't watch baseball.
Yep.
Right.
You know, normally when you're teaching baseball to someone, it's a disinterested girlfriend or a toddler. And I hate this sounds mean, but a lot of times it's the same situation. Hey, that's 3 strikes. You're out. Oh, but I tipped that one. Well, it's a foul tip. With, you know, someone of, you know, Kieran is a very intelligent individual.
Yes.
It's a little bit quicker of a conversation.
He was fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. He starts playing MLB. What's the business, bro? Yep.
What's the business?
He starts playing MLB The Show, and he'll text me, is this a good batting average? Who's this guy? What's this? You know, he's already probably smarter than your average baseball fan. Right. He might not have the historical acumen of somebody that's been screamed at in the United States for the last 30, 40 years like us. But in terms of picking up modern day baseball, he's right there with anybody else.
Yeah.
He's just maybe got some terminology to learn, or, you know, why you don't throw a curveball if you've got a left-handed batter up and a runner on third. You know, there's things like that are going to take some time, but for the most part, he's all right.
I'd like to. Oh gosh, Tyler put it in there backwards.
Yeah, I thought Tyler got hacked for a second.
Yeah.
So also, I hope Tyler's doing okay, because we were both in West Virginia. He lives there. I was visiting. We had plans to go Tuesday afternoon to Randy Moss's chicken restaurant, which oddly enough, I guess, is raising all kinds of hell with the local media. Well, that's another story for another day. But man, like, prayers for West Virginia, y'all. If y'all haven't seen it, it got absolutely demolished. Like everywhere. It's like I was in the one circle that was okay, and everywhere around me got destroyed on Tuesday. We had stay-at-home orders from the local government. They were shutting down bridges into Ohio. It was bad. The guy that lives like 2 doors down from my brother-in-law, his house got flattened by a billboard. Trucks were turned over. An elementary school lost its entire roof. The news was in there just like, well, it's gone. Like,
jeez.
So, you know, Wheeling got hit hard too. They're flooding everywhere. I know Cincinnati had a little bit of a rough time, but like multiply it by 100 for West Virginia. They got smoked Tuesday. I was supposed to be at work 9 a.m. today. So normally that means I leave Tuesday night, get home around, you know, midnight, typically have dinner with my family and come home. Ashley woke me up at like 4:30 this morning so we could go to work. So I'm a little tapped out right now.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to brag on a couple people. Project Game Day. So Santori and Dale, our brother from Bengals and Brews, they put out a draft guide. And then a gentleman named Foxy.
Shazam!
He he put a challenge out there for Bengals fans and for the draft guide. If we could raise $1,000 with this draft guide, all the money is going to Project Game Day, by the way. If we could raise $1,000 with this draft guide, just strictly on donations, he was going to donate $500 of his own money. Well, we obliterated $1,000, and he donated $500. He's a man of his word. Dale, Santori, you guys knocked it out of the park. Foxy, thank you so much for donating.
It's still not done yet.
No, it's a work in progress, but it's everybody's loving it.
It will be done Sunday. I've got Dale's final edits. I sent you guys my schedule in a text today, just jokingly. I've got
Whichever lunch.
Yeah, right. KFC.
Not allowed to have it.
Yeah, I've got 9 hours blocked off over the next 4 days just for proofreading and adding. I think there's one or two profiles I got to add. There's a couple things like making bullet points pluses. So I've got like 1,000 bullet points to change to pluses. There's just some. It's more
tweaks.
Yeah, small tweaks. Dale inserted final thoughts for his 250 guys, but that's a copy paste thing because I've got his Word document and I've got our PDF.
Right.
My hope is Sunday that it'll be 100% finalized. It'll probably be close to, oh God, at that point, 285 plus pages.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dale's at 250 prospects, so I've got probably 15 to 20 pages to add. I've got my work cut out for me over the next 3 or 4 days, but it'll look really, really good.
And let's not forget, there's also an event before the event for the draft night. Cincy Hat's going to be.
Oh yeah,
at Midwest Best.
I was like, when are we doing something else? What did I miss?
What?
Yeah,
James.
No, 5 to 7. Cincy Hat is going to be there with a new released hat that our friend Pork Chop had a little bit of a hand in designing. But
yeah, we are trying to be like all smooth and secretive and nice about it. Like we've known for a minute now, and
I got my hat yesterday.
And
tomorrow.
Yep.
When do I get a hat?
Did you buy one?
No.
Oh well, probably not until the event.
well.
Just text Matt at Cincy Hat. You'll be fine.
It's all right, but like, and then a certain someone posted a picture on their social media today of the hat, and we were like, oh.
Yep.
Well, we were trying to be nice. Then Ted Karras just lets the hat out.
Yep.
It's like, all right, well, thanks, Ted. Thanks, Ted. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah. So if you want to see what it looks like, Ted Karras did put it out there. We'll let you go find it on whatever social media he put it on there. We won't make it that easy, but it's got such a good response from us with him, with Matt at Cincy Hat, that Matt decided to order more because he's afraid.
So I can buy one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So he is so afraid that we're going to run out. I put on there, I was like, you better order 500 more because these things are going to sell quick. It's a thick hat. It's sleek. It's a simple design. Really, really looks good. And I believe there's 2 options too. So there's a mid-crown and I think there's a mesh back version as well. So, but we've got that going on. We got the events afterwards, 7 to whenever. That is private. You have to have bought a ticket for that. There was maybe a little confusion, maybe not, on Twitter today about that. But got exciting things coming up, and we've raised quite a bit of money for this already. We can't thank everybody enough.
We're just completely shocked. We cannot thank each and every one of you enough. This is just truly a blessing. Just such a good thing what's going on for this project that we're doing.
I just wanted to watch the draft, and here we are.
Me too. But yeah.
Yep. Now, if you are wanting a draft guide, or if you just want to donate, here is the Project Game Day Venmo. All you have to do is scan that right there, take you straight to it. People have donated as little as $1, and people have donated as much as 500. So we are very thankful. But here it is, just in case you guys haven't donated or just feel like you want to donate some more. There's a sexy stash over there. That
Where did Dad go, by the way?
He said his house was too noisy.
Oh, yeah, he's almost done with the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
They're installing stuff outside and installing the backsplash at the same time.
Oh,
so
gosh.
I was over there to watch opening day, and there were people hammering and mounting things in the kitchen, and then there were guys up on the roof installing some new roof, and so like it was just for the 3 hours just hammers. So I get it. He's probably losing it right now. With that being said, if you're also interested in other ways to help Project Game Day, there is a Patreon, and right now there is nothing on it. So just be aware. I'm not trying to like promise things that aren't there. I need to update it, but there are going to be 3 tiers for the Patreon. Incredibly expensive. I know. I'm sorry. $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month.
Woo!
If that's something that you want to do, you're more than welcome to. $1 a month is strictly just helping Project Game Day. There's nothing else to it. It's just you feel good. I get $1 to help get people to games. If I could get 100 people to give me $1 every month over the course of the year, that pays for all the season tickets. So, I mean, $1 is an awesome way to give. I know that sounds so cheap. I know it sounds ludicrous, but truthfully, that helps out a lot.
Give us all the money.
So, the other tier is $2 a month. I wrote this all down. I can't remember exactly what it's going to get. It gets access to any previous documents that Dale and I have done, which will be previous draft guides, anything like that. And I know Dale had suggested that tier 3 be I do film breakdowns, and I release them there every week. And that would be for the $3 a month. So
There'll be other stuff too, but yeah.
Right. So I think tier 1, $1 just to help. Great. Yay. Thank you. Tier 2. Oh, this is what it was. Tier 2 is access to any documents that we do, because I'm doing the draft compendium. I'm doing free agency data. I started looking at every free agency contract that was ever signed, just to try and find common ground, help people be a little bit smarter with free agency. Hey, this guy's going to sign for $200 million. No, he's not, you jackwagon. He's going to sign for 43. Okay. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm compiling a bunch of data for the draft and free agency. Any other weird formulas or tidbits that I work on, like the production per dollar, will be on there.
That's a good one too. I'm excited for that.
Yep. So the production per dollar will be on there. Free agency will be on there. Draft stuff will be on there. All of those are live documents. So you can watch me build that. It's not going to be something you can edit, but it's something you can check out. Those things are going to take me probably years to complete. I'm in the 30s right now for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you the first person to ever be elected to the Hall of Fame that was an NFL draftee was from WVU. So for the West Virginia folk out there that watch, we've got some NFL draft history there. So tier 1's going to be thank you just for giving. It's $1. Tier 2 is going to be all those documents. Plus you get a entry in our Rally Around the Natty jersey giveaway every month. So that's 12 entries. Tier 3, which will be the $3, will be all the documents, the film breakdown, which I'm kind of being pressured to do, not from Dale, but by other people as well, Dad, and an entry into the giveaway. If I could get 50 people to give me $3 a month.
Mhm.
I mean, that covers almost all of our expenses. So that's, if you're looking for a way to give back and you don't just want to, do the one-time donation, or maybe you can't give $25 right now, or you want to, do the $3, a month thing, because, some people put I've got Patreons that I forgot about for like 2 years. And if you signed up for a $3 Patreon and forgot about it for like 4 years, we'd love you. It is what it is. But so to recap for an eighth time, $1 to help, $2 gets you documents and the entry, and $3 gets you documents, film breakdowns when I do them, which will be once a week during the season. I'm not sure what day, because it does take a couple days for that all 22 to drop.
Mhm.
I typically do 2 on offense, 2 on defense. A lot of it's like football 101 stuff, but it's going to, believe me, some of this football 101 stuff, you'd be surprised. Like, you're not going to hear it on TV. You're going to look like a genius with some of your friends. When you say a backside wheel with a corn dog underneath, and people are going to be like, "What the hell did you just say?" It's really going to fuck up cover 2, let me tell you. Anywho, and then so that's the $3 a month. So
Cool.
anyway, that and we're going to put all our draft guides on there.
Mhm.
We're typically not going to put a draft guide on there until after the draft, because we still do want to promote those as a singular item. But then, once the draft is over, it'll be up there on Patreon. In that way, if you want to go back and be like, "Hey, what did this asshole say about, Jaden Daniels 3 years ago?"
Mhm.
Oh, well, there it is. Like,
Right.
it'll all be categorized on PDFs and everything. So, like I said, there's no content on there yet. It's a work in progress. That's going to be something I probably get to next week. But the Patreon is live. If you want to start looking into that or finding it, we'll start promoting it through Project Game Day as well. Every dollar helps. It's we don't keep any of this.
Nope.
We do pour money out of our own pockets into it. I think everything that's being raffled off on our event night is all of our own personal stuff, or stuff that we bought for it. We're not even using proceeds to buy stuff, which has been a point of contention with some people, but it's not our money to spend.
Well,
So,
on that note, because we do have a ball game
no,
that
we
we got to
don't.
watch. 8 o'clock.
They suck.
3 minutes ago.
Send Ellie down. Back to Louisville.
Greg, Frankie Montas is pitching for us tonight. Need you to get us fired up for it. Okay? Can you do
I love
that?
how he's like cracking the neck.
He's like, okay, I'll do it. I got it.
No, it's like it's a lot easier doing than the dance off that I have to do on Bruce, but it's
10 seconds, you know what to do. And then we'll end it there, okay? Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate every single one of you. Ready?
That's my trash, you the maid, so you bagged him. I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty.
Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. Oh, such a happy city. But wait a minute, where's that coming in? You say that there? That is a big burning Frankie Montas who's going to start picking the hell out of Phillies tonight. He's going to shut the Phillies down.
And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the